Imagine this. Deep beneath the bustling streets and glowing lights of modern-day Mexico City lies a forgotten realm, ancient structures not built for this age. Towering pyramids, massive stones etched with mysterious glyphs, and legends of sun gods and giants. All remnants of a civilization long buried by history. The Maya. But who were the Maya? And why did they suddenly vanish, leaving behind temples, astronomical calendars, and unanswered stories? Once stretching across all of Central America, the Maya civilization was a beacon of brilliance. Masters of architecture, mathematics, and astronomy. They erected towering pyramids rivaling those of Egypt, invented a solar calendar with astonishing precision, and developed one of the most complex writing systems in ancient America. Yet in the 16th century, everything came to a halt. When the Spanish arrived, they didn't just conquer with swords and armor, they burned down an entire legacy of knowledge. Even more unsettling is the possibility that they intentionally hid something. For centuries, the secrets of the Maya were buried, not only by time, but by forces that did not want the truth revealed. Documents were banned, legends were dismissed as myths, and critical questions were left hanging. Where did the Maya really come from? Could they be the descendants of an even older civilization, one that might not even be from this world? In today's journey, World Mysteries invites you to venture into a story that never grows old, a tale where history, myth, and mystery converge. A quest that began in 1519, cutting through the fabled dust of Atlantis, diving beneath buried pyramids, and arriving at the edge between reality and the unimaginable. Part 1. The Spanish Conquest. When 500 men toppled an empire, in 1519, a man named Hernán Cortés set foot on an unfamiliar land, what history would later call Mesoamerica. He wasn't a legendary general, nor did he command a mighty army. He had no ironclad ships or advanced weaponry. What he brought were 500 soldiers, 16 horses, a few cannons, and an unshakable belief that this land held a hidden treasure. Gold. Standing in his way was an empire of over 6 million people, thousands of fierce warriors, and a thriving civilization with radiant cities like Tenochtitlan, known at the time as the Venice of the New World. How could such a small force possibly bring down a vast and powerful empire? The answer lies in a blend of strategy, belief, technology, and psychological warfare. The Aztecs, inheriting many beliefs from the ancient Maya, held legends of returning gods. When the Spanish arrived, pale-skinned, armored, and mounted on horses, many tribes believed they were the prophesied emissaries of Quetzalcoatl, the god of light destined to return from the east. Religious reverence made these tribes hesitant to resist. Cortés exploited that belief to its fullest. He divided the indigenous peoples, allying with those who had been oppressed by the Aztecs. One key turning point was the Tlaxcalans, who, after a brutal battle, joined the Spanish cause. Cortés promised liberation from the bloody rule of the Aztecs if they fought by his side. From that point on, his small army became a strategic spearhead, piercing the heart of the Mesoamerican Empire. Weapons played their part. The natives had never seen horses and believed the mounted warriors were mythical beasts, half man, half creature. Guns and cannons, with their deafening roar, were mistaken for divine thunder. But Cortés's most dangerous weapons were not iron or gunpowder. They were words and belief. When Cortés reached Tenochtitlan, Emperor Montezuma welcomed him as a guest. But within days, Cortés had imprisoned the king, seized the palace, and dismantled the ancient temples. He introduced Christianity, replacing native deities with the cross and statues of the Virgin Mary. The conquest was completed in less than 2 years. Yet one haunting question remains. Why did the Spanish destroy all the Maya texts and documents, instead of studying or preserving them? Why such haste to erase a civilization's knowledge? Could it be that what they read in those ancient books was too dangerous for the world to know? Part 2. The Maya Civilization, Before Its Fall. When time bowed to genius. Before the ships bearing the cross of Spain appeared on the horizon of Central America, and before the swords and cleansing fires scorched the ancient temples, the Maya had already built a world that made even time bow in reverence. They were not a savage people scattered in the jungle, as colonial records often portrayed. On the contrary, they were the heirs of a brilliant civilization, one that stood shoulder to shoulder with the giants of human history. Ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley. From around 2000 BCE until the 15th century, the Maya created a highly advanced society built on city-states, strict laws, grand temples, sophisticated calendars, groundbreaking achievements in mathematics, medicine, astronomy, and a unique writing system. At the heart of this civilization stood cities like Tikal, Palenque, Copan, and Chichen Itza, where towering pyramids rose like stone torches, illuminating an entire era from within the jungle canopy. Unlike Egypt, where hieroglyphs were reserved for the priesthood, the Maya writing system permeated every corner of life, from stone stelae and pottery to bark paper codices and celestial records to royal genealogies. Tragically, when the Spanish arrived, they burned nearly everything, branding these books as heretical. Today, only 4 ancient Maya codices remain, the most famous of which is the Dresden Codex, a masterpiece of knowledge that could accurately predict solar eclipses, the cycle of Venus, and other astronomical events. But the Maya did not stop there. They developed a dual calendar system, the Tzolk'in with 260 days for religious rituals, and the Hab with 365 days for agricultural life. When these two calendars interlocked, they formed a special cycle of 52 years, known as the Sacred Century, a unique unit of time that only civilizations with deep cyclic thinking could conceptualize. Most remarkable of all was the long count calendar, which measured time in units called baktuns, roughly 394 years. This very calendar caused a global stir with the prophecy that the world would end in 2012. But to the Maya, that date merely marked the end of a 5,125-year cycle, a transition, not destruction, in the eternal rhythm of the cosmos. While medieval Europe was still fumbling with clumsy Roman numerals, the Maya had already invented the number 0 by the 4th century CE, a revolutionary leap in the history of mathematics. They used a base 20 system, highly logical and precise, for tracking time, calculating land, and organizing society. With just dots, lines, and a shell-shaped glyph, they could represent numbers in the hundreds of millions. Even more astonishing was the Maya's relationship between architecture and the cosmos. Many of their structures were built in perfect harmony with celestial events. There are temples where, on the exact day of the spring equinox or summer solstice, sunlight pierces through a central slit, like a portal opening between the mortal world and the divine. The Pyramid El Castillo at Chichen Itza is a prime example. During the spring equinox, shadows form the illusion of a serpent of fire slithering down the staircase, a phenomenon too precise to be accidental, widely believed to be a sacred ritual connecting earth and sky. The Maya didn't speak to the universe with words, but with stone, light, and exquisite alignment. They didn't just measure time, they bent it, made it obey their sacred cycles. And if they truly could do that, track the motion of the stars, encode the history of the cosmos into every symbol and every carved stone, then perhaps the most astonishing thing of all is that it took the modern world so long to begin listening to them. Part 3. Aztlán and Atlantis. Legend or truth? To the modern world, Atlantis is often dismissed as a mere myth, a tale spun by the Greek philosopher Plato about a utopian island swallowed by the sea in a single day and night, punished by the gods for its arrogance and greed. But to many independent scholars, explorers, and even indigenous peoples of the Americas, Atlantis is not just a story. It is a fragmented memory of a forgotten civilization. And if that civilization really did exist, could the Maya be its surviving descendants? Aztec legend tells of a sacred ancestral homeland called Aztlán, an island filled with lakes and white herons. It was said to be a holy land where the gods once lived among the people. One day, the gods commanded the ancestors of the Aztecs to abandon Aztlán and journey south in search of a promised land. And so began their great migration, one that lasted centuries and ultimately led to the rise of magnificent cities in Central America. The name Aztlán in Nahuatl means land of the white herons. It was described as a lush island surrounded by water, home to an advanced society and a complex religious system. Sound familiar? It mirrors Plato's account of Atlantis, a circular island with concentric canals, a thriving cultural hub, and unparalleled advancement for its time. In his works Timaeus and Critias, Plato claimed that around 9,000 years before his time, roughly 11,600 years ago, Atlantis lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, now known as the Strait of Gibraltar. It was an empire with warships, elaborate architecture, canals, and buildings of gold and silver. But the Atlanteans grew arrogant and were ultimately punished by the gods with earthquakes and floods that sent the island beneath the waves, leaving no trace. And yet, the resemblance doesn't end with geography or myth. There's also the linguistic echo, Aztlán and Atlantis. The Atlantic Ocean lies just east of Mexico, and many scholars have speculated that Atlantis may have once occupied this very region. In Greek, the name Atlantis means Island of Atlas, the titan condemned to hold up the sky. Curiously, Maya myths also tell of ancient giant beings tasked with supporting the heavens, who were the first builders of the pyramids, and were later punished by the gods for their hubris. Even the deities align across continents. The Maya worshipped three principal gods: the sun god, symbolizing life and wisdom; the god of the underworld, Xibalba, associated with death and rebirth; and a goddess linked to the moon and the balance between day and night. In Greek mythology, these figures are reflected in Apollo, sun, Hades, underworld, and Persephone, goddess of death and renewal. Coincidence or something more? Some researchers, including French scholar Charles-Étienne Brasseur de Bourbourg and American archaeologist Edward Herbert Thompson, have proposed a bold theory that the people of Atlantis did not all perish. Some, they suggest, migrated, one group to Egypt, the other to the Americas, eventually becoming the Maya. While mainstream academia often dismisses this theory, it has gained traction as new linguistic, geological, and cultural evidence continues to emerge. If Atlantis ever did exist, then the Maya may be the last remaining clue, a living link to a lost golden age. Their pyramids may not just be temples, they may be messages, final transmissions from a forgotten world meant for the generations yet to come. And perhaps buried within the stone steps of Chichen Itza or the glyphs of Palenque lie echoes of a past that refuses to remain silent. Part 4. The Pyramids of Mexico. Structures that do not belong to this age. When we hear the word pyramid, most of us immediately picture Egypt, the timeless stone sentinels guarding the sands of Giza. But few realize that deep within the jungles of Mexico, hidden behind modern cities and shrouded in centuries of silence, lie pyramids no less majestic. In fact, some of them possess features so advanced and inexplicable that modern science still struggles to understand how and why they were built. These weren't just temples. They were cosmic maps, celestial clocks, and stone-carved messages from a civilization that may have known laws of the universe we're only beginning to grasp. Not far from Mexico City lies the ancient ruins of Teotihuacan, home to the Pyramid of the Sun, a structure that rises nearly 75 meters and has a base nearly as wide as the Great Pyramid of Giza. Though only half the height of its Egyptian counterpart, its astronomical alignment is astoundingly precise. But what truly unsettles researchers is this. When the Aztecs and Maya came across the site, they claimed they had not built it. They called Teotihuacan the place where men become gods, a place where mortals transcended into the divine. So who did build it, and why was it designed to track the movements of Venus and predict solar eclipses? Farther south lies another astonishing structure. Even larger, the Great Pyramid of Cholula. For centuries, it was mistaken for a natural hill. When the Spanish arrived in the 16th century, they unknowingly built a Catholic church atop it, unaware they were standing on the largest pyramid by volume on Earth. It wasn't until the late 19th century, as erosion began to peel away the layers of soil, that the true magnitude of the structure was revealed. What emerged was not a simple monument, but a six-tiered pyramid with dozens of corridors, ceremonial chambers, and a complex ventilation system. To this day, only 3 tiers have been excavated. The rest remains buried beneath the earth, as if someone or something had deliberately concealed it from the eyes of a newer age. Even more mysterious is how these pyramids seem to be woven into the stars. Many Maya pyramids were aligned with celestial events. One of the most famous examples is El Castillo at Chichen Itza. On the spring and autumn equinoxes, sunlight strikes the staircase in such a way that it creates the illusion of a serpent of light slithering down the steps, symbolizing the return of the god Kukulkan. Is that mere coincidence? Or is it evidence of an astronomical mastery far beyond its time, calculated by minds who could read the heavens like a sacred text? The Maya themselves never claimed to be the originators of this knowledge. According to their legends, These architectural and astronomical insights were inherited from giants or ancient ancestors, beings who no longer walk this earth. Their stories eerily echo other cultures around the world. Tales of giants who built great cities before a global flood, only to be punished by the gods with fire and water. Today, some independent archaeologists dare to say what mainstream science will not, that such pyramids could not have been built with simple stone tools and manual labor alone. The sheer volume of materials, the pinpoint accuracy of placement, the alignment with celestial cycles, all of it suggests that these are not merely ancient structures, but structures that transcend time. And if the Maya were only the caretakers, the ones who inherited the knowledge rather than those who first forged it, then the real question is, who were the ones who built them? And what legacy did they leave behind, hidden in stone and shadow, waiting for the right eyes to uncover it? Part 5, Giants and Prehistoric Traces, where myth intertwines with history. In the collective memory of many ancient civilizations, from Greece and India to the Americas, the figure of the giant consistently emerges, not as a monstrous creature, but as a primordial being with immense strength and wisdom, often portrayed as the first builders of the world. The Maya and the Aztecs were no exception. According to Aztec lore, their ancestors once emerged from the sacred caves of the north, journeying southward across the land. Along the way, they encountered a mysterious race of giants, silent beings who hailed from the east and had survived every cycle of world destruction. They did not wage war, but they carried with them the memories of previous epochs. Most importantly, it was said that they were the ones who first constructed the pyramids. The elders spoke of how the gods grew angry at the arrogant height of these towering monuments and punished the giant architects with a rain of fire. Almost all of their creations were consumed, save for a few pyramids left behind as cautionary relics, a reminder of ambition and its cost. It may sound like myth, but myths, as we know, often echo something far older than imagination. During his conquest of Central America, Hernán Cortés formed an alliance with the Tlaxcalteca, a tribe long oppressed by the Aztecs. To seal their trust, the tribe's leader gifted Cortés something extraordinary, a giant femur, so large it matched the height of a full-grown Spanish man. The chieftain claimed it belonged to one of the giant ancestors who once inhabited the land long before common humans. Fascinated, Cortés had the bone sent back to Spain as a token of his strange and sacred conquest, addressed directly to King Charles I. The event was not a fable. It was recorded in royal archives and preserved in history. And this wasn't the only such bone ever unearthed. Before the rise of the Maya, Central America was home to the Olmec civilization, widely considered the mother culture of Mesoamerica. The Olmec left behind colossal stone heads carved from basalt, some weighing up to 20 tons and standing over 3 meters tall. But what struck archaeologists wasn't just their size, it was their faces. Wide noses, thick lips, deep-set eyes. Features that seemed to resemble African physiognomy, not indigenous American traits. Mainstream academia has long avoided the question, but independent researchers have proposed bold theories that these statues may depict a now-lost race, or even voyagers who reached the Americas long before Columbus ever set sail. Then comes a theory, whispered along the margins of archaeological consensus. After each cycle of destruction, such as those described in Maya mythology, only a few extraordinary beings would survive. Among them, giants, guardians of ancient wisdom, bearers of the memory of Atlantis. They left behind their stories in stone, in architecture, in myth. And if such beings did exist, perhaps the question is no longer whether they were real, but rather where did they come from, and why did they vanish? Could the pyramids that stand in Mexico today be the last surviving legacy of these ancient giants? If so, whose ruins are we truly walking among? Part 6. The Solar Cycles and the Maya Cosmos. When time was a sacred loop. Unlike the Western concept of linear time, where time is an arrow forever shooting forward, the Maya and Aztec imagined time as a sacred circle, a continuous cycle of creation and destruction. To them, history was not a steady climb of progress but a series of cosmic epochs, each beginning with creation and ending in catastrophe. Each of these epochs was symbolized by a sun, and according to records kept by Spanish priests, humanity now lives under the sun of earthquakes, the fifth cycle. Before our current age, 4 previous suns had risen and fallen. The first was the jaguar sun, when humans were giants, ultimately devoured by divine jaguars for rebelling against the gods. The second cycle, the wind sun, ended in fierce hurricanes, and the survivors were transformed into monkeys, perhaps the mythical ancestors of modern humanity. The third, the sun of fire, saw the world consumed by flames and lava, with humans becoming birds to escape. Then came the sun of water, during which a great flood drowned the earth, leaving only a few survivors in the form of fish. We, according to the Maya, now live under the light of the fifth sun, the final cycle. They believed that one day, it too would end, in a series of devastating earthquakes that would erase all civilizations. In the Maya worldview, such quakes were not merely natural disasters, but messages from the cosmos, signaling that the end of time was approaching. But these cycles were not only tales of natural wrath, they were deeply rooted in myths of sacrifice. The Maya did not believe that the universe operated randomly. They believed everything in the world existed because of a price paid in blood through divine courage and sacrifice. According to legend, after the collapse of the first 4 suns, the gods gathered to create a new world. Yet for that to happen, one of them had to willingly throw himself into a fire to be reborn as the new sun. That god was Nanahuatzin, weak and ridiculed by the others, who leapt into the flames first and became the radiant new sun. Another, wealthier and prouder god hesitated and jumped in second, becoming only the dim moon. Yet even with the new sun born, it did not move. The remaining gods realized that to set the world in motion, they too had to die. One by one, they pierced their own hearts and offered their blood to fuel the sun's journey across the sky, and thus, time began to flow. From this story emerged a profound philosophy, that humankind must continue to feed the sun with sacrifice. This is why the rituals of human offering were performed, not out of cruelty, but out of sincere belief that without blood, without devotion, the sun would stop moving, and the world would collapse. To the Maya and the Aztec, life was inseparable from sacrifice. It was through the gods' deaths that light, crops, and human existence itself became possible. Today, such legends are often dismissed as fanciful myths. But if we shift our perspective and consider the advanced astronomical knowledge the Maya once held, their ability to track the orbit of Venus, to predict solar eclipses with extraordinary precision, then these stories might carry a different weight. Perhaps mythology was simply another language for preserving knowledge. Perhaps the Maya once possessed a deep understanding of the universe's rhythm and chose to record it through symbols, rituals, and even blood. Part 7. Sacrifice and Religion, Cruelty or a Misunderstood History? In the Western historical imagination, the Maya and Aztecs are often depicted as savages, people who held bloody rituals, slaughtering tens of thousands each year atop pyramid temples to appease their gods. But is that really the whole truth? Or are we seeing an ancient civilization through the distorted lens of conquest? When the Spanish arrived in Central America, they recorded scenes that still chill the modern world. They described a skull tower standing 70 meters high, lined with over 130,000 skulls, each pierced through the temple by wooden stakes. They wrote of a festival in Tenochtitlan where 80,400 people were sacrificed over just 4 days, according to the priest Diego Duran. And they spoke of blood-soaked temples where human hearts were torn out while the victims were still alive. These accounts were preserved in the letters and reports of Hernán Cortés, Bernal Díaz del Castillo, and missionary priests like Fray Duran. But we must remember, these were the words of the victors, and as history has shown time and again, it rarely speaks kindly of the defeated. Today, many scholars suspect that such numbers were exaggerated, a strategic move to justify invasion and religious conversion, transforming conquest into a holy mission to cleanse the so-called savages. In reality, within the Maya worldview, blood was not a symbol of death, but of life. It was the sacred essence that connected humans to the divine. When warriors pierced their tongues or genitals with thorns to bleed onto paper, they were not being barbaric. They were offering their life force to the cosmos. Blood was the red thread that linked human beings to the stars, a physical prayer to the supernatural. Not only warriors, but even kings and queens performed bloodletting rituals. To them, This was a sacred act of communion with their ancestors and the forces of the universe. In a world where life and death were two sides of the same coin, the Maya believed that eternal life could only come through pain, loss, and sacrifice. Interestingly, such bloody rites were not limited to Mesoamerica. Elsewhere in the world, the Old Testament tells of God commanding the Israelites to destroy the Canaanites, smash sun god idols, burn their altars, and even scatter corpses atop the sacred statues. The Phoenicians burned children alive to appease the god Moloch. The ancient Greeks offered blood sacrifices to Ares during times of war. So why did ancient civilizations, separated by vast oceans and continents, share such similar blood-soaked rituals? Could it be a shared human memory of an ancient global religion that existed long before history was officially written? Some theorists suggest that as the Aztec Empire grew in power, it politicized religion, turning sacrifice into a tool of control, spreading fear to consolidate dominance. In the hands of the elite, blood became a method of governance, no different from crowns or armies. Religion and power fused into one, as they had in nearly every empire throughout history. Yet whether faith or control, one thing remains clear. The Maya and Aztecs genuinely believed they were doing what was right, that they were sustaining life in the universe. To them, it wasn't cruelty, it was a sacred duty. And in the end, between myth, history, and propaganda, we still face a curtain that has yet to be fully lifted. Perhaps only the silent stones of the ancient pyramids remain as the true witnesses, guarding the answers that modern humanity continues to seek. Part 8. The Hidden Documents. When history is locked behind the Vatican's doors, if the Maya truly possessed knowledge far beyond their time, if they were descendants of a civilization more brilliant than our own, and if the Spanish conquistadors once gained access to fragments of that truth, then why is there almost no mention of it in official historical records? The answer may lie in places where most of humanity has never been allowed to enter, deep within the secret archives of the Vatican and the Spanish royal family. After the conquest of Central America, the Spanish did more than plunder gold and seize land. They launched an unprecedented campaign of cultural extermination. Anything deemed pagan was gathered and burned. Ancient Maya manuscripts, stone inscriptions, complex calendar systems, astronomical maps, all were reduced to ashes in the name of defending the Christian faith. Thousands of books written on bark paper containing astronomical insights, mathematics, cosmology, and spiritual philosophy were lost forever. And yet, miraculously, 4 ancient Maya codices survived the flames. The Dresden, Madrid, Paris, and Grolier codices. No one knows exactly how they escaped destruction, but many scholars believe the remaining manuscripts were not destroyed at all. Instead, they were shipped to Europe and locked away in highly classified archives that have never been made public. Numerous documents collected by priests, missionaries, and colonial officials during Spain's occupation were never released to the public. Instead, they were sent back to Europe, where they vanished into the hands of 2 of the most powerful institutions of that time, the Holy See and the Spanish Crown. What raises suspicion is the complete silence surrounding these materials. Could some of these documents contain revelations that challenge religious doctrine or disrupt the foundations of modern science, such as detailed descriptions of ancient technology, astronomical knowledge far ahead of its time, or even connections between the Maya and lost civilizations like Atlantis or ancient Egypt? To this day, these mysteries remain unanswered. In 2019, Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador formally requested both the Spanish government and the Vatican to release documents related to the Conquest era and issue an apology for the genocide and cultural destruction inflicted upon indigenous peoples in the 16th century. The response? Nothing. Not a single reply. No explanation. Not even a symbolic gesture. Perhaps that silence is more unsettling than any confession. Fueling this speculation is the existence of one of the world's largest and most secretive repositories of information, the Vatican Apostolic Archives. Spanning over 85 kilometers of shelving and containing millions of documents from the Middle Ages to the present day, these archives hold records from the era of the New World's discovery, letters from missionaries, ancient manuscripts, and quite possibly materials connected to the Maya civilization itself. These records lie dormant in locked vaults, perhaps holding the final pieces of the puzzle to understand a civilization that still fascinates the modern world. In the end, history is not just written by the victors, it is also hidden by those who fear the truth. Part 9. The Question of Human Origins, a History Interrupted. Throughout this journey into the world of the Maya, we've followed the traces of a great civilization, not through the lens of myth, but in the light of a deeper question. Is the history we're taught truly the whole story? If the Maya were the descendants of Atlantis, if giants once walked the earth and built the pyramids, if the solar cycles reflect a cosmic, repeating history, then the ultimate question we must ask is, where do we, modern humans, truly come from? More and more independent scholars and researchers now suggest that before the rise of known civilizations like Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley, there may have existed an ancient global civilization, one that was astronomically advanced, architecturally sophisticated, and deeply spiritual. Civilizations like the Maya may not have been the inventors of this knowledge, but rather its inheritors, keepers of what remained after cataclysmic global events wiped the slate clean. Clues to such a shared civilization appear across the world. Pyramids scattered across continents: Egypt, Mexico, Peru, China, Indonesia. Astronomical calendars with a level of precision that still astonishes modern scientists. Identical symbols from Africa to the Americas: spiraled serpents, trees of life, and solar deities. And common myths of great floods, giants, and gods descending from the skies, all echoing across disparate cultures. But if such a super-civilization truly existed, why don't we learn about it in textbooks? Who decides what gets recorded in history and what gets erased? Perhaps some of this knowledge was lost by accident, like the burning of Maya codices by Cortés and his missionaries. But what if it wasn't an accident? What if the omission was deliberate, meant to preserve social order, uphold religious orthodoxy, or maintain power? As George Orwell once said, who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. The Maya believed that we are currently living in the fifth sun, our current era, destined to end in cataclysmic earthquakes. But to them, what mattered wasn't what you built, but what you left behind for the next cycle. Perhaps the pyramids, the stone carvings, and the ancient legends were their version of a black box, messages meant for survivors of a future world. Maybe it's all just myth. Maybe giants never existed, Atlantis was just metaphor, and the sun cycles were nothing more than ancient storytelling. But then again, maybe it's all true. And we're merely the latecomers, picking up scattered fragments of memory from a past no one dares to remember. Because the world doesn't end with answers, it begins with questions. We've just traveled across a timeline that stretches back thousands of years, from the golden age of the Maya to the buried secrets beneath the soil of Mexico, from the supposed curse of the pyramids to the legends of Atlantis, from tales of giants to blood-soaked rituals and ancient documents sealed behind locked doors. Each fragment felt strange, even unbelievable. But when placed side by side, they begin to form a picture. One that forces us to ask, how much do we really know about our own past? In today's world, we boast of satellites, artificial intelligence, and advanced engineering. Yet we still can't explain how the Maya lifted stones weighing tons without modern machinery. We can chart the orbits of distant planets, but we can't fully grasp how the Maya calendar achieved such mind-boggling precision. We dream of colonizing Mars, but we've yet to uncover the full story buried beneath our own feet. Maybe the history we were taught is just a shortened version, revised, edited, and cut to fit the shape of our current worldview. A version that keeps the narrative clean and the power structures undisturbed, while quietly omitting some of the most essential chapters about our origins, our knowledge, and what it truly means to be human. So the question becomes, what should we believe? No one is asking you to believe the Maya came from Atlantis. No one is forcing you to accept that giants built the pyramids. But when similar legends echo across the globe, from Greece to Egypt, from Africa to Central America, maybe it's time we stop laughing at the myths and start listening to them. The ancient world isn't dead. It's just sleeping, buried beneath the dust of time, waiting for someone to tell its story again, this time, the right way. What do you think? Who were the Maya, really? Was Atlantis ever real? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if this story made you question what you thought you knew, share it, subscribe, and keep exploring the forgotten pages of history with World Mysteries. Because the world is full of secrets. And sometimes the most unbelievable stories are the ones that haven't been told yet. World Mysteries, where truth begins with a question.